So we talked a little bit before the call that the reason you're volunteering with Rcoz is the reason is really personal with you, and you have dealt with depression and anxiety since you were a teenager. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about, what happened and how do you feel about that?
Sure. So, mental illness has always been a really big part of my life. It's something I've struggled with more than half of my life. And, it's even when it's under control, it's always there, really. And I think that, the fight against mental illness and just bringing awareness to it is really important because, it's not like an illness that other people can see generally. I mean, sometimes there are symptoms, but a lot of times, someone who is struggling is not showing those emotions outwardly. There is something they're experiencing, but, they may present like they're okay.
Yeah.
And so it's really something that is an important part of my life and something that I'm really interested in bringing more awareness to, because there is still that stigma. And, hopefully we can kind of normalize these conversations and make people aware that they're not alone.
Yeah. And so what were the symptoms that made you realize that you needed help?
Yeah, so when I was a teenager, I was just feeling, I felt like there was something wrong, or that there was something different about me compared to my friends. I was tired all of the time. I didn't have any motivation, even, to go out and spend time with friends or anything like that. And it felt different than it had felt previous, just several years before that. So when I was 14 or 15, I started feeling just down a lot. And depression is something that's hard to describe and to communicate to other people, especially, people who don't experience it themselves, but also it's very different from person to person. So I would say just my symptoms were just really struggling in day-to-day life.
And who decided that you needed help? Was it you or your family, or like who took you to, like, I mean, what was the first thing that you did? Did you go to a doctor, a friend, a psychologist?
Yeah, so I started out by going to my primary care physician and just saying that I was tired all the time and just didn't have any motivation, just all of those things. And that was when I started antidepressants. And over the years that evolved. And I know that medication is not a cure-all, but because a lot of my experience, or a lot of my illness comes from biology, the medication was really helpful for me, combined with therapy and, seeking support from my family and friends. So yeah, that's it. That's how it started. I started going to a primary care physician when I was younger, and then eventually started seeing a psychiatrist and a therapist as well.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you're sharing your story. It'll help a lot of people. And then how did you like break this, since you said it is a stigma around telling anybody that you have a mental illness or a depression. How did you break it to your husband? And what did you get from him?
So I had I had been living in the Midwest for about 6 years when my depression got really, really severe. And it got to the point where I couldn't work, and I just really needed to kind of start from scratch, come back home, live with my parents for a little while, and kind of like use them as that support system. Get them to help me do laundry and cook and, all of the things that 20-somethings should be able to do and should
While you
have
were
an
still on
independent.
medication.
Yes, while I was still on medication. And it was soon after I moved back that I met my husband. And, So he was really a part of that from the very early stages of my recovery from that really severe stage of depression. And so he was pretty much aware from the beginning. But it was very nerve-wracking to kind of open up about that and to let him see that part of me. But, you know, I think when you're in love with someone, or even the earlier stages of that before you fall in love with someone, you have to kind of let them see who you are. And so that's what I decided that I needed to do. But it's very scary because there is that stigma that exists around it.
Yeah, yeah. I can totally imagine what you were going through that time, right? You're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with your own depression and your medication. And you also talked about like weather played a big part of it also, right? When you were in the Midwest, weather also.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm from the deep south, and it typically the winters here are not really severe. We may have a couple of cold and gloomy days, but for the most part, it's pretty mild. And I had grown up with that, and that was the winter I was used to. And I didn't always feel great like in the winter. I had definitely had some seasonal affective disorder that I was dealing with, but when I moved up to the Midwest, I lived in Indiana for about 4 years, and then Cleveland, Ohio for 2 years. And the sun rarely ever shines in northern Ohio. So it was very, very difficult to deal with. I mean, it was a big shift, just, lifestyle changes. And the colder it is outside and the more difficult it is to get around because of the snow and everything, the less you want to leave your house, and the less you want to interact with other people. So that kind of took my depression to an all-time low, because I wasn't seeing friends. I had a great group of friends there that really, they treated me like family, and they helped me through a lot of it. But when I started withdrawing due to the weather, it was really difficult and put me in a really dark place.
Yeah. No, Laura, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think with your story, we can see that, once you realize, you can speak up about it, find the right help, you have the support of the family and friends. And
Absolutely.
there can be a cure at the end of it. Thank you again.
Thank you.